So there are currently growing concerns going on over in Afghanistan as to whether or not this new Taliban regime can prevent ISIS-K from continuing its growth in the nation. Now, what's happened with this whole situation is that ISIS-K, there was an attack that was just done a few days ago where somewhere between 40 and 70 Hazaras in Afghanistan were killed. They are Shiite Muslims. They're a very small minority in the country. And I guess the details were supposedly the attacker was a Uyghur Muslim. You know, the Uyghurs are being held in mass internment camps over in China, and they're being brainwashed with Xi Jinping thought. It's absolutely insane. But the Taliban don't seem to care about Uyghur Muslims. Not very surprising. I don't really think that, obviously what we know is Muslims hate each other's guts, especially, Sunnis and Shiites, they hate each other. But, even within, there's even more fighting. So, not all that surprising to me personally. But there's a news story where there's an Afghan foreign minister who's saying that Taliban forces can control ISIS threat. So the new Taliban government in Afghanistan is able to control the threat from Islamic State militants who have launched a series of deadly attacks in recent weeks, Acting Foreign Minister Amir Muttaqi said on Monday. Speaking at an event in Doha, he said instability in Afghanistan was not in anyone's interest, and he called for cooperation from the world community, saying Afghanistan would not be a base for attacks on other countries. So this is a few layers deep. Obviously, it's a new Taliban regime that, Taliban were known, especially for their first original reign, for being absolutely ruthless. They were extremely ruthless on crime at the time as well, and that was partly why people actually were happy that they came into power the first time, is because it was just Afghanistan was just roiled in sectarian and provincial and the warlord essentially violence that was going on there. So whether or not they can crack down on this ISIS threat in Afghanistan is a big question. Obviously other countries are going to be very concerned about this. China also doesn't want Afghanistan to become a hub for Uyghur fighters who are interested in essentially, carrying out terror attacks against them for what they're doing to the Uyghur Muslims in the Xinjiang province in China. So, there's this question. Obviously, Afghanistan is falling into complete, shambles right now because, all of the people with any sort of expertise are out of Afghanistan. Massive amounts of brain drain. A lot of them running away. Some of them being taken out by the Taliban. The Taliban don't actually know anything about actually running a real country. They were able to be essentially a rebel group, but obviously very heavily funded and supported by Pakistan. Very obviously, they got that massive border that they can just, go into Pakistan, recoup, come back out, all of that stuff. So whether or not they can actually maintain this country, I should say remains to be seen. But in reality, obviously, Afghanistan is crumbling. They don't have a real economy. It's 2021. You need a real, modern economy, essentially. So what's going to happen in Afghanistan is really yet to be seen. There's too much division in Afghanistan. Also, there's a question as to whether or not the Taliban would even care about this specific attack. Like, this might be an attack they want to let go through because I don't think the Taliban likes the Hazara Muslims either. They're a minority. Minorities typically are obviously often, persecuted in societies, and they're not going to like them. They're Shiite Muslims, and they're a minority, so they might not care about this. Is that something that the international community is going to be worried about? I don't know. And then when it comes to whether or not the Taliban have legitimacy in Afghanistan, whether or not Afghan people support the Taliban, I'm not really sure. Again, another issue is there's so much division in Afghanistan, rural versus urban life. Kabul and, Jalalabad life are very, very different from, maybe, some rural area in Afghanistan. So it's very tough to really see what's going on here, but it's obviously a backwater shithole. And especially with the Taliban at the helm, they don't have any expertise at running a country. Most of the people don't even want to run the country. They want to get martyrdom and just, do jihad. So they're kind of disappointed. So what's going to happen? I'm not 100% sure. China's obviously going to try to flex its influence in the country. But, can the Taliban really control the ISIS threat? Honestly, I think the answer is no. I don't think that they can. think it's going to be, they're not in this kind of business anymore, it seems like. Maybe they were into this kind of thing before, but it wasn't really necessarily about terrorism the first time around, more about crime. I don't think they can really control the ISIS threat personally. I don't think it's going to work out for them.